Daniel Grant joining us to talk at the Good Luck Club about his experiences, his life, and perhaps we'll get into a little bit of luck in that. So Daniel, maybe we could kick off by you telling the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I was born in London, lived in London my whole life. I'm now 40, the big 40, and...
You're definitely looking.
Thank you. Again. And yeah, I've been a personal trainer for 20 years, and always studying and progressing on my understanding of health and fitness, and been in that side of things, that field. Started an agency, personal training agency, wrote a book, done a number of things, created an app, lots of things in that industry, in that area. And now coming up to 40, having 2 kids. My oldest is 3.5, my little boy, and my little girl's 9 months at the moment. Just feeling that either it's my relationship with them and what personal training, what kind of lifestyle that will help provide to my family, or I've been doing personal training for 20 years and I really want to do something slightly different. I've been working quite extensively on my education around marketing the last 3 and a bit years, probably 3.5 years. So, and that's currently where I'm at. So I'm still personal training, and I still enjoy that, but I like doing less of it these days, rather than 10 sessions a day, which I used to do back in the day. And then most of my working day is taken up with marketing, and currently working with a few businesses and just starting that out really. And that's where I'm at with the family life phase.
Mm. Well, Daniel's always a bit humble. He's actually probably the best personal trainer in London. I think certainly without doubt one of the most experienced personal trainers. I find his story fascinating, and maybe Daniel, we could go back to your early years. You know when you were 15 years old, something happened to you. Maybe you can tell the audience a little bit about that.
Well, a few things. So I got into my first relationship when I was 15.
Didn't we all?
Which lasted 7 years. So I had a 7-year relationship straight off the bat. That's one thing that happened. 15, also had my nose broke.
Right.
Was it that story?
Football. I'm thinking your football career.
Football.
You were destined to be a footballer.
Playing a lot of football, yeah. So yeah, I love football, still watch nearly every game. I'm a Londoner, so of course I support Liverpool, and that's another story. But was really wanted to make it in football. I was really focused on that at the time, but didn't know all the things that I knew as I learnt through being a personal trainer, and all the things I know now, which is now more common about allergies and intolerances. And you'll know about this yourself. I'm sure you'll share your experiences on that at some point. But mine is I have an allergy to barley, wheat, and rye, which I found out through a blood test about 8 years ago. And when I was at school at 15, it wasn't the right thing. So I've gone off on a tangent, but one of my things that I think halted my career in football, I could have gone to a certain level, whether I could have made it all the way, I didn't. So whether I could have if I knew this, I was being poisoned, because I would eat sandwiches. Before the game I would eat bowl of pasta with tuna. And I got the timing right, because I wasn't full up, I could run, but I felt like I was poisoned. I didn't realise, I just need to get fitter. So I think that probably led into me going down the personal training route. Like, how do I get fitter? How can I be fitter for the games? But the real reason was I was really fit. I was training. I didn't drink. I've never really drunk, apart from the last year having kids. You tend to drink a little bit more if you go down that road. I did. So I've never really drunk. So at that age, when you start kind of experimenting, start drinking, I had a lot of friends who smoked. I never got into smoking, so I was fit. But when it comes to the games, I wasn't. I couldn't work it out. And it wasn't until later in my life, 25, that I started to become aware of these allergies. And I've gone off from the football tangent, but onto why I think that didn't work out.
Do you think the food allergy thing, I mean, you didn't know it at the time at 15, you just felt like you weren't quite as active as you'd like to be? I mean, you could have been a professional footballer, but maybe this held you back, but you didn't know what you didn't know?
I feel that definitely, yeah.
And do you look back at that and think, I was unlucky at that point in life, or do you feel like that was a good thing?
It's right. I didn't know what I didn't know, and it wasn't mainstream then, so there wasn't much chance. There was probably a tiny outside chance, and it wasn't severe enough that I was sick or ill. It was just I just felt like I could perform better, and I wasn't, and I didn't really understand why. But it is a tiny bit of a theme. Now you're talking about it, if I'm being honest, I always am anyway. But that people say, "Oh, you got everything. When you football, I was fast. I was strong. I had everything, but I didn't make it." And now people say that in business. So they say, "Oh, you're so driven. You're passionate. You got it all there. You're intelligent enough." And some people would say, "Yeah, you have been successful," but there's levels of success, and I can't retire and not work now. So that's kind of, I suppose, what I'm gauging that on. Or even take some time off. I could have, the position I'm in right now, I could have a couple of months off, but I wouldn't, because then the backup money that we have for the family would disappear. So I wouldn't do that. But I'd like to be in a position where I have, ideally, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years or plus. So that's what I'm judging success on. But that's a theme for sure.
So do you think, it's, do you think there's a history repeated itself a little bit through your life? These kind of, I would say, lucky moments where you are a really good footballer, and I've heard from people that you were a really good footballer, and that, but maybe because of this food allergy problem that you had, that you were a little bit unlucky, but you weren't aware of it, therefore you didn't quite make it. And then, as your career's developed now, there's a bit of a history repeating itself. You've kind of reached plateaus, and do you feel like you've been lucky, unlucky in business, or how do you feel about that?
I'd agree. There is a theme through there, and I think it's a balance. I've been lucky because I have had a good lifestyle. I have had a good business. I have had, like the golden numbers, kind of like 10k months, right, in the business in general, and that's kind of the first real success step you want to have. And I've had those months in personal training, but that's quite a slog and a graft in terms of hours, and you're exchanging your time for money.
You mean you've earned £10,000 a month being a personal trainer, right? That would be a lot of personal trainers. Anyone listening out there is a personal trainer. That would be a big number to earn every month, right?
Yeah.
But what you're saying is that come with that, let's call it luck, for the sake of it, that large pay packet comes a lot of time and energy and drains you somewhat, right?
Which I definitely don't want to do right now because of the family environment.
Right. Well, when you have kids, things change again, right? You've got your priorities kind of change.
Yeah. So I think I've been lucky, and I wouldn't say unlucky. I would say not. I haven't had a home run where I create, like my book took off, or the agency took off, or something I created took off, and it was earning 100, 150, 200k a year. Because the 10k months weren't every single month for a year. I'd have a couple of 10k months, and then it would go to maybe 6 or 5 or 7, and then it would fluctuate, and then it balances out over time. But so I wouldn't say I've been unlucky, but I wouldn't say I've been excessively lucky and had a real home run.
The reason I wanted to interview you is because I feel like you've got a story that a lot of people can relate to. I think there's a lot of people out there that have worked very, very hard, and you've worked very, very hard, and have had success, defined by who, I don't know, but by traditional standards. You've earned good money, you've I guess had a decent lifestyle, you own a few properties, you own your own home, so by a lot of definitions of success, you've kind of been successful. Yet I feel like Daniel trained me, so I got to know Daniel for the listeners' benefit, but I feel like there is an element of dissatisfaction somehow, and where does that come from? But I feel a lot of people feel that way. This is your issue is very normal, but I find it interesting to analyse it a little bit and get to the truth of it. And taking, of course this is Good Luck podcast, but taking luck out of the equation for the minute, is it that you haven't fully committed to things? Is it you haven't worked hard enough, which I don't think it is, but I'm just interested in your opinion. Is it that you haven't had that lucky break? Is it that you haven't taken enough chances? Is it that you have done all those things and actually life's fine and you're just not satisfied with it for some reason? What is it?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that question, because this morning went into a little conversation in my mind, and it was, hold on, you got everything you need right now. So why is there this disconnect with a sense, like a feeling of unhappiness? What is that? So I have these, maybe the listeners do as well. We have these conversations with ourselves, and it was.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that feeling that they should be happy, but they're not.
Yeah.
And then someone tells them they should be happy, so they're happy for a little while, but they do some ungrateful things, but later again they feel unhappy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And what my brain came out with and the feelings was, I am happy with where I'm at. I appreciate where I'm at, grateful. And
that's background noise of my son screaming, by the way, because I'm doing a very professional podcast here in my own home, and my son likes to scream sometimes. He's 2, so forgive him. Sorry, Daniel, say.
I thought it was my internal frustration just coming out there. I could hear it. I think, I can actually hear it.
Yeah, your inner voice screaming, what's wrong with my life?
But it was also, why do I feel that way? Because I should be grateful, should be appreciative where I am, appreciative. And then I think it's because I do want more, and it's about options. So am I lucky enough to have options that everything I do in my day, it's exactly what I choose to do that day, not because I've got to go and do that. And I understand about commitment. When you commit to some things, it might be something you love, like you want to get your golf game down to sub 10 par. So and then you realise you've got to go to the range however many times per week, and you've got to play X amount of games per week. And then some weeks you won't feel like that. So I don't think it's all just pleasure and options and freedom. I understand there's commitment in some of it, but I'm fine with that, because when I really do commit to something, I do, but there's something in there and we've talked about this a lot. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think what you said to me before kind of struck me, when you talk about I've worked so hard, I've kind of followed the rules that everyone tells you out there, kind of the Gary V's of this world, like work, and yet it hasn't, in your mind, hasn't happened for you in the way that you want it to happen for you. And so, I wonder what the learning is, or how you can help. I think a lot of people feel this way. There's a lot of people working very hard out there, but they haven't made it. Do you think it's a question of the redefining success, or is it, and maybe let's say settling and being happy with what you've got, or is it pushing through and getting where you want to be, and pushing yourself, working even harder? Is that are they right, those people out there that say that it's work?
To some extent. I don't think anyone who's ever made it just kind of did it lying on their back. I think they had to work their socks off, for want of an even more intense, powerful sentence, but they had to really give it some for a period of time. And
I don't know, you see, I have a slightly different view on it, is that I actually feel like I made the most amount of money when I wasn't working as hard.
I think that's state. That's what I was just about to get to. I think it's your mental and emotional, your state of your being in that moment. So if you have a conversation with someone and you're angry, and it's even in the back of your mind, you're not angry with that person, but you've got this angry thing going on in the background, they sense it. Everyone, we're more sensitive than we realise, most of us. And to have a clear, I think it's good to air and do things like this, have a conversation and say, what is your idea of success? And you could share that with 5, 10, 15 people, and they might say, that's pretty crazy. What you've got is X, Y, Z. That's successful, and that might change your mindset. And then you actually feel and thinking positive about your current position, which then gives you a different energy to go and focus on the project at hand or the person you're working with. So I think it goes a lot back to your state.
I just think that's a really interesting point. But I think, because once again, out there in the universe, if you watch inspirational videos and stuff, a lot of the time you'll hear people say, surround yourself with positive people, surround yourself with the right people. But I think what you're saying there, which I think is an insight that might be interesting for people, is if you surround yourself with people that haven't got as much as you, they may see you as successful, and that can make you feel better about your life. If you surround yourself with people that are ultra driven, ultra successful, maybe that can also leave you with a feeling that you haven't made it and dissatisfied. equally, I think dissatisfaction can also be a driver, right? I mean, if you're not quite where you want to be because you aspired to be like the guy next door who's got a Ferrari and you haven't, that kind of, analogy. Is that a good or a bad thing, I wonder, though? So should you follow the advice out there, which I've heard again from others, get rid of anyone around you who's not super driven and super successful, because if you're with a bunch of losers, you'll be a loser. What do you think of those kind of things?
I think that's extremely hard to do.
You mean get rid of people that are losers around you?
Yeah.
But maybe we're saying the opposite. Maybe it's not a good idea to get rid of the losers around you. Maybe sometimes the losers around you can make you feel grateful that you've got a few properties, you're quite successful, and some people can't even make their rent this month. Not that you should be around those people to give you that feeling, but you can appreciate how lucky you are compared to how hard it might be for your friend, right?
Yeah, I think it's healthy psychology. So if you're sharing and talking with people from different backgrounds, then that's going to give you a broader look across the whole aspect of how it could be, right? So you shouldn't take business advice from broke people. You shouldn't take money advice and investment advice from broke people. That's quite sound advice, but I think you should still hear them, but not necessarily take it on board, because you can't follow what a wealthy person says, because they've got their own understanding and their own angle on it, and it might not fit with you. It might not work.
It's interesting. I mean, taking that point, advice from someone that has about money from someone that hasn't made money. I spent quite a lot of time in Thailand, and I spent a bit of time with, frankly, very poor people in province in Thailand. And what I found was that you can actually learn something from these people. I thought when I first went there, they've got no money, they're living in a shack. What can they teach me? And then what they actually taught me was empathy and being grateful for what you've got. There's an element of that there, isn't there? It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. One of the things I think about you that maybe it's just dawned on me, that you train a lot of wealthy people. You train a lot of very successful people, and so sometimes that must both be a joy, but you hear their stories, and it must add pressure to your life in a way.
I think so. I've been aware of that a couple of times, and I think ultimately it's a good thing, because it makes me aspire to be even more. But the problem is if I start getting sad about trying to aspire about it. If I'm upbeat and positive about trying to aspire about it, then generally that energy could knock on to be a more positive outcome, I think, in general. Which is, again, going back to that, I think that state of mind. You could see, are you being lucky or are you being unlucky? I could look at it from different ways. Yeah,
that's why I wanted to interview you, because I think you're kind of on the line between lucky and unlucky. I think and it's all a matter of perspective, right? The whole point of this luck podcast. Sometimes it is about perspective, right? And I think what's interesting about you do jump between the two, right? I can see you some days and you feel lucky, and other days you feel unlucky, but actually nothing's really changed, right?
Not much. Especially at the moment when I'm kind of, my business is, I'm not as business busy as I used to be in the business that I used to do. So that feels really strange to let go of that business somewhat as well. I don't know. I wouldn't say I've been unlucky. I think that would be incorrect and disrespectful if people who haven't got as much as me and some friends who I talk to say, wow, look what you've done. I think that would be disrespectful. So I wouldn't say I've been unlucky, but I wouldn't say I've been really lucky and hit a home run. Because I look at some people and I think, well, I don't think they're smarter than me. They've not put anything out or said anything that seems. I don't think what they've created is anything better than what I've done. So how did they end up with that lucky break, so to speak?
Right.
Do you need one lucky break, and that takes you to a certain level, and then so I'm hovering let's say this level, wherever that level is, and then a lucky break could come through, and now I'll just be hovering at a higher level. Does that one break need to pull you up at some point? Have I had a couple of those in my life? Probably, yeah. With some of the people I've met and dealt with, and I have been lucky. I wouldn't say I've been unlucky for sure, but I do want more.
In business context, what do you think the luckiest moment has been in your life? If you look back, would you?
Well, a long-term one was when I worked in Belsize Park. Just before I got that job, I left college and I was playing a lot of football, and I became a football coach for Watford Football Club, and I was coaching in schools and for Watford Football Club with football teams in the area around Hertfordshire and in London, and I wanted to go down that route, and then I broke my arm. I broke the upper arm, the humerus, which isn't funny, which is the joke I've loved for years, and so I ended up thinking, well, it's a bit bitty, this coaching, and where's it going to lead? So I got a job in the gym, long story short, and then I was at the leisure centre, which is always a nightmare. If anyone knows, leisure centres always run badly, and I left there after a year after getting to the highest I could get in that position, and I thought, right, I'll get a job in a personal training. So I did my personal training qualifications. So I studied sports science at college, and then I went on to get a personal training qualification, and then I ended up, long story short, too late, I did a number of interviews and ended up in Belsize Park, and I chose to get a job at a gym, and I was there for nearly 20 years. I think it was around the 20-year mark, and I think that was my lucky job, because I've had clients who I've had for 14 years. So I think it's not a home run, it's like a spread lucky break over a long period of time.
It's kind of interesting that you think your lucky break was that you broke your arm.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd word it like that, but it changed direction for kind of. It changed the direction of my life a little bit. But it was at a point where I was at an age where I thought, okay, am I really going to make it in football? Getting to that age now. And Ian Wright made it, I think it wasn't until 24, 26, something like that. And he ended up being an amazing player. But so maybe I could have gone on and could have got that lucky break. Maybe it was sticking for longer. Who knows?
Interesting. Well, thank you very much for giving us your time today, Daniel Grant, personal trainer, owner of a video photography agency. Thank you again for your time. Appreciate it very much. And thanks for sharing your story with our listeners.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.